has the mood been in the club this week?
Well, I think it's probably fluctuated a bit. We're all a bit sore and sorry coming back from Perth, but since we've arrived back at Arden Street, we're rejuvenated and looking forward to the challenge of responding to what was a really poor game for us.
What came out of the review?
Well, a lot of stuff that we've got to work on. We're just beaten in all aspects of the game, so I'm not going to go into specifics as to what we're focusing on, but it's fair to say there was more than one area, and based on the last even probably 18 months, 2 years, it's not a lot of those areas were different, and it was really frustrating because it hasn't been the North Melbourne identity over the last couple of years that we've seen.
Can you turn it around in a week?
Yeah, this club's got a pretty good history of doing that, so we expect that to follow through.
You talked about changes at the selection table. Is that a warning? Is it what's going to actually happen?
Oh, when you get beaten by that margin, there's always the potential for changes. I mean, we've got certainly one forced with Vickers-Willis going out, but look, we're still wrestling with the situation of probably two ways we can go. We can make significant changes, or we can basically put it on the 21 players to respond. So I think they're both options available to us at the moment, and we'll have to make a decision on that tonight as to which way we go.
Is Scott Thompson available? Is he back?
Yeah, he only got a week as far as I'm aware. No, he's available, yeah.
So is he, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he's available. I mean, so it'll go into the mix, but yeah, I mean, with our defenders that we've lost over the pre-season, yeah, he'll come in.
You did tend to back your players in last year, didn't you? That seemed a strategy on the outside that you were going to give them time, not just react on 1 week.
Oh well, they get. I think on the available evidence, I've always backed them. I've always backed them in, but there comes a point where backing them in doesn't mean they're not held accountable to their role and responsibility. So we'll make that, as I said, we'll make that decision. But when you get beaten by that margin, all options are on the table. So players will either uphold their end of the bargain, or there'll be changes.
There was some criticism that you were too Ben Brown conscious. Did you feel that at all? He's a pretty good player to be shooting towards anyway, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think there's much change in that. He had a pretty good season last year, and he was the #1 inside 50 target in the competition. So you go too much to one player when that player doesn't dominate. And so in hindsight, yeah, that's correct. But there's no doubt that we still need to work on forward synergy, and that's changed a little bit. Jared Waite has been a mainstay next to Brown, and before that, Drew Petrie was a mainstay. So it's always evolving and changing, and I don't think too many teams are different. Looking at the Brisbane West Coast game, they had to change and evolve without Josh Kennedy there. So when the personnel's different, you've got to be able to play different ways, and it certainly didn't work for us on the weekend. And so we've got to make sure that we get it right this weekend.
Do you put it down to effort? A lot of talk's been of the Bombers and their effort in their match. Do you put that down as well? Or?
Yeah, that's always a part of it. But I think that when you don't play well, your effort looks poor. What we know is that when you're not playing well and get beaten badly at this level, like in modern footy, the effort, it's like thin edge of the line sort of stuff. Your effort's either really, really good or it's just off. But the notion that players just don't try hard enough is, it's poor analysis in my view.
It's probably not a list you'd like to touch on too often, but where does it rank among the worst losses at your time at the club?
Oh, I don't rank them. That's up to you to do that.
There was a lot of discussion last week about Paul Ahern being left out. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into the reason for that? Was it the defensive side of the game? Was it something else?
No, I'm not going to go into all the reasons for it. We picked the side that we thought was best equipped to beat the Fremantle Dockers, and we got that wrong.
Can I ask about off-the-ball incidences?
Yeah.
You had a player who was involved in one, Ben Cunnington, and there are a couple others. I think it was Liam Jones and Liam Ryan. Were you surprised that they didn't get weeks, considering the AFL pledged to crack down on it in pre-season?
Yeah, well, it depends what you call crack down. I mean, Ben Cunnington got a $3,000 fine, so he doesn't think that he got off. But yeah, I mean, the challenging thing for the match review officer is that they're intentional and they're to the body. So that's the first two components, and then the next thing to grade is impact. And when there's no injury and not a significant injury, how do you grade it as anything other than low? So what we expect, I mean, we haven't had any warning of this, but I mean, our players are on notice that we will find that those incidents will now start to be graded as medium, and so that'll result in a week. I've got very little.
That, sorry?
No, absolutely not. No, we haven't been told that, but that's the way the world works.
Have you had a word to him at all this week about that?
I've spoken to all our players, not only this week but across the board. And I think there's got to be a fine balance, because what you find, there's always a reaction, and I thought across round one, a number of players went down like they'd been hit like a Mack truck when there was very minimal contact. So it puts the umpires in a really difficult position where they've been told to pay free kicks for any strikes off the ball, but there are a number of players who go down like fallen leaves.
So you think some of those players are staging now? Like, there's no doubt to try and draw that free?
Yeah, well, you watch footy, and when you're at a forward 50 stoppage and you feel contact, if players continually get rewarded by a shot at goal for minimal contact, then they're going to keep doing it. So it all adds up to making umpires' jobs really, really difficult. But our end of the bargain is simple. Don't punch anyone.
Do you have a philosophical view on whether you should get weeks or you should get fines for those off-the-ball incidents?
No, I think the AFL have made their intentions pretty clear. Now, people will say they said they were going to crack down and they didn't. Well, they fined those players. So, there was a response. But again, they're backed into a corner by the grading. So they either decide to grade them as medium or they continue to grade them as low.
What did you make of Brisbane? Obviously last week they were quite impressive and taking them on as well.
Yeah, they've been building for a long period of time, and they've added some more capability to their team, and I think they were showing really good signs of development last year, and have added Lachie Neale and Jared Lyons to their midfield and a few other players in different parts of the ground. So they've been incredible in their ability to keep 43 of their 45 players available over a 3-year period, and they've got that availability again, so they're going to pick a pretty good 22.
You mentioned a couple of their midfielders there, and there's obviously Hugh McCluggage was a great performer last week, Jared Berry. Is that the biggest concern from your end about the Lions, the biggest target?
No, I think they're more complete than they've been in a long time. So I think they're pretty set in the way that they defend, and their forward half's pretty set, and they've added a couple of midfielders. So no, they're a really good developing side, and they've been developing for a long time. So they're going to give a lot of teams a lot of trouble this year, particularly at the Gabba. But we've got to uphold our end of the bargain and make sure that we play the way we expect to play. And on the weekend, we didn't look like the side that we've developed over the last 18 months.
You've got a good record against them. Does that count for anything at all?
No, I think things have changed a fair bit. But we'll go in confident that we play a system that's capable of competing with anyone, and it's been good enough against Brisbane in the recent past, but they're a better team than that now, so we're going to have to go up a notch.
Brad, some of the players are pushing for earlier Friday night start times. Are you in favour of that from a family perspective? I know it probably doesn't affect you this week, but...
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I've tried to get to a few Friday night games from North Melbourne to the MCG. It takes about an hour and a half in traffic, so I think they're all those facts. But it's the ultimate objective is to get as many people watching the game and getting as many people at the game as possible. So from a player-coach perspective, I think we'll play whenever we get scheduled. I think the fans are the ones to ask.
What did you make of Jordan McGoey's comments about the offer you guys reportedly made to him last year?
Yeah, reportedly. To be honest, I don't know. The way that list management works at our club is that we look at certain players, we look at opportunities that we may have, and my role at list management is to answer the questions as to whether a player like that would fit into our system. And so if the answer to that is yes, then the accountants and the numbers men go to work, but for good reason. I don't know what players are paid.
Are you comfortable with a player coming out and being that open about dollar amounts, and that another club specifically targeted him?
Oh yeah. I don't have any concerns about that.